The topic of death is a highly sensitive issue, and so I advise you to proceed with caution. Otherwise, this is what happens after we die from a molecular and forensic perspective. Hello, I am the forensic student, and in this video, I will share what my knowledge and basically what I have learned on the topic of what happens after we die. Death itself is a process. It is the moment our organs stop working to keep us alive. In science, there are two types of deaths: clinical death and brain death. Clinical death is the term that describes the cessation of a patient's heart pumping blood through the body, and is usually paired up with a lack of breathing. With the lack of oxygen, the cells begin to die. However, clinical death can be reversed, but it must be done immediately. What do I mean by this? The heart can be resuscitated through CPR to restore blood circulation and breathing, as the heart's work is to pump blood, but then again, it must be done immediately so that it can preserve vital organs such as the heart, liver, and kidneys. These organs normally require a continuous supply of oxygenated blood to stay alive, and quick reversal helps maintain the viability of these organs, and also to prevent brain death, which is the second type of death that is irreversible by all means. This is because the brain is highly sensitive to oxygen deprivation. After clinical death, the brain cells normally begin to die within minutes without oxygen. Neurological damage can start to occur within 4 to 6 minutes of clinical death. Immediate intervention is crucial to preserve brain function and prevent permanent damage. Otherwise, legal death is declared. Legal death, a term often used that involves an irreversible cardiac or respiratory cessation, or irreversible brain death function, usually requires the examination, determination, and sign of a qualified medical professional. Now that you have at least a clue on death, let us talk about what happens to our body after we die. Shortly after death, cells begin to break down due to enzymatic processes, a process known as autolysis. Autolysis, otherwise also known as self-digestion, is a process where the cell destroys itself through the action of its own enzymes. It digests itself. Lysosomes, which are body organelles that contain digestive enzymes, start to rupture, leading to self-digestion of the cells. This leads to necrosis, which is just cell death, often caused by either diseases, injury, or trauma, and in our case, lack or failure of blood supply. Necrosis is typically rapid and involves cell swelling, membrane rupture, and inflammation. The cells lose their structural integrity, and because body tissues are made of group of cells, they too undergo necrosis. Now that everything in the body is dying, the body begins to decompose. There are ways you can stall this decomposition process, such as embalming by using formaldehyde, which prevents bacteria growth for some time in your body, which we are going to talk about the role they play in decomposition later on in the video. Storing the body in low temperatures or extremely high temperatures that again prevent bacteria growth, or using high concentrations of salts or sugar, a process known as salting, to draw moisture out of tissues, desiccation, and inhibiting microbial growth. This method was used in ancient mummification practices. But anyway, this video isn't about that, but I hope you get the gist of things. There are 5 stages of decomposition: the fresh stage, bloat stage, active decay stage, advanced decay stage, and lastly, skeletonization or dry remain stage. Fresh stage, which is the first stage, usually lasts for about 1 to 2 days, depending on various factors such as the temperature, humidity, body weight and compositions, the clothing worn, and so many others. And there are 3 main phases that happen in this stage, namely algor mortis, rigor mortis, and livor mortis. In algor mortis, the body begins to cool to match the ambient temperature. It is known as the death chill, the post-mortem process in which the body temperature gradually decreases until it reaches equilibrium with the surrounding environment. This process begins immediately after death and is one of the first changes to occur in the body. Of course, This can be affected by a variety of factors, such as the environment the body is in. Like in a warm environment, the body will cool more slowly because the temperature difference between the body and the surroundings is smaller. And also, the body size and composition affects this. Smaller bodies and those with a higher surface area to volume ratio cool more quickly than larger bodies, or those with more fat, which acts as an insulator, cool more slowly, among many other factors. In a living organism, heat is continuously generated through metabolic processes such as cellular respiration and muscle activity. This heat production maintains the body at a stable core temperature, typically around 37 degrees or 98.6 degrees. After death, metabolic processes cease and the body no longer generates heat. As a result, the body begins to cool down. Heat is transferred from the body to any cooler objects or surfaces it is in contact with. Heat is also lost to surrounding areas, either through convection or radiation, and if the body was wet, then moisture may be lost due to evaporation leading to cooling. Okay, right after rigor mortis begins. This is when the body's muscles become stiff and the body becomes hard. You know, the kind of stiffness that indicates that a person is truly dead. This is usually due to chemical changes within muscle tissue. You see, in a living body, muscles require adenosine triphosphate, ATP, for contraction and relaxation. ATP is produced through cellular respiration and is essential for muscle movement. After death, the production of ATP ceases because cellular respiration stops. As ATP levels drop, the muscles can no longer relax, and so they become stiff. This process typically begins within 2 to 6 hours after death. It peaks at 12 hours and resolves within 24 to 48 hours as enzymatic activity breaks down muscle proteins. Factors such as environmental temperature, physical activity before death, muscle mass, and cause of death can influence the progression of rigor mortis. After rigor mortis comes livor mortis, also known as post-mortem lividity or hypostasis. This is the pooling and settling of blood in the lower parts of the body after death, causing a purplish-red discoloration of the skin. This is because blood is no longer circulating in the body. It will pool around the lowest parts depending on how the body was staged when death came knocking. So, if the deceased was seated and the body wasn't moved upon death, then blood will pool around the legs or bum. And if the person was lying down, then the blood will pool in the back area. This is all due to gravity. Blood leaks out of the capillaries into the surrounding tissues, resulting in visible discoloration. The discoloration becomes more pronounced and spreads as more blood settles. It is still possible to blanch the lividity by pressing on the skin, but the color returns once pressure is released. Patterns of lividity start to form based on the position of the body. If the body is moved during this time, new patterns can develop in response to the new position. After approximately 8 to 12 hours, livor mortis becomes fixed. The blood has settled and coagulated in the tissues, and the discoloration no longer blanches when pressure is applied. The patterns of lividity are stable and will not change even if the body is moved. This is like 8 to 12 hours after death. As decomposition progresses, the breakdown of blood and tissues can alter the appearance of livor mortis. Again, the speed these changes will occur will depend on the environment. Areas of the body with significant trauma may not exhibit livor mortis due to disruption of blood vessels and tissue damage, and certain poisons or drugs can affect blood coagulation and capillary permeability, influencing the appearance of livor mortis. The second stage of decomposition is the bloat stage. This is the stage where the body begins to swell and expel odor due to accumulation of gases in the body. Depending on a variety of factors, this stage can happen 2 to 6 days upon death. The accumulation of gases is due to bacteria, primarily anaerobic bacteria from the gut. The gut bacteria, now unchecked, proliferate and produce gases like methane, hydrogen sulfide, and so on that cause the body to bloat. When there is no circulation of oxygen, bacteria, both endogenous and exogenous, begin to break down tissues. The decomposition of proteins by bacteria produces various gases, including methane, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and ammonia, a process known as putrefaction. The bloat stage typically begins within 24 to 72 hours after death. The pressure from accumulated gases can cause the skin and internal organs to rupture, releasing fluids and gases. This can lead to a collapse of the body structure and a reduction in bloating. This is also the time where you would notice many insects around or on the body, that is if it was not preserved. Insects are usually there from day one, but they become more prominent during this stage. Let me know if you would like a video on the role of insects in body decomposition. Blowflies and other insects are attracted to the body, laying eggs that hatch into maggots. These maggots and other scavengers, such as the beetles, birds, consume the soft tissues, further contributing to decomposition. The third stage of decomposition is the active decay stage. This is usually 5 to 11 days after death, depending on some factors. Now at this stage, the insects are everywhere, depending on whether the body was outside or in the ground. The body is now almost unrecognizable. It is in the middle stages of decomposing. The active decay stage, also known as the black putrefaction stage, is a phase of decomposition where the body undergoes extensive breakdown and loss of mass due to the combined effects of microbial activity, insect consumption, and chemical processes. Bacteria still continues to play a crucial role in breaking down the body's tissues. They release enzymes that degrade proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates, resulting in the release of fluids and gases, which leads to the foul odor. The blowflies and other insects continue to lay eggs on the body, which hatch into larvae, the maggots. These larvae consume soft tissues, accelerating the decomposition process. Other predatory insects, such as beetles, may also be present, feeding on both the body's tissues and the maggots. The self-digestion by the body's own enzymes, autolysis, continues to break down cellular structures. The breakdown of tissues results in the liquefaction of the body's internal organs and tissues, leading to the release of fluids into the surrounding environment. So, for like 5 to 10 days, approximately, and depending on various factors, the body begins to lose fluids rapidly as tissues break down and liquefy. These fluids, rich in nutrients, seep into the surrounding environment, attracting more insects. The skin may begin to peel away from the underlying tissues, a process known as skin slippage. This is caused by the breakdown of the connective tissues that hold the skin in place. This marks the end to the initial active decay stage. The second stage, which is the advanced active decay, proceeds for the next 10 to 20 days. Here, the body undergoes significant tissue loss as maggots and bacteria consume the soft tissues, decreasing the body mass substantially during this period. As soft tissues are consumed, bones may become exposed. The skeleton may start to become visible through the remaining tissue. The remaining tissues will darken in color, often turning black or brown due to the action of bacteria and the oxidation of hemoglobin. Again, all of this, the rate of this process, the results, will be influenced by a variety of factors such as the environment, surface area to volume ratio, etc. For example, higher temperatures accelerate the rate of microbial activity and insect development, leading to faster decomposition during the active decay stage. But in lower temperatures, the decomposition process might slow down, resulting in a longer duration for the active decay stage. The insects are also feeding on the body at this point, speeding up the decomposition by consuming tissues and introducing additional bacteria. Different regions have varying insect populations, such as the natural orifices like the mouth, ears and eyes, and soft body tissues, which can affect the rate and nature of decomposition. However, different groups of insects have different interests in terms of the area they like to feed. The advanced decay stage is a phase of decomposition that follows active decay and is characterized by the significant reduction of the body mass, as most of the soft tissues have been consumed or decomposed. It is like active decay stage but more advanced. In this stage, most of the insects are gone, but there are more beetles as those groups tend to break down the hair, skin and bones. You'll also probably notice a decrease in microbial activity as most of the readily available organic material has been consumed. The population of insects is also reduced, as we mentioned earlier, particularly maggots, as the food source diminishes. However, other scavengers and beetles may continue to feed on the remaining tissues and bones. The process of autolysis and putrefaction, bacterial decomposition, continues but at a reduced rate. With the majority of soft tissues decomposed, bones become more prominently exposed. In certain conditions, particularly in moist environments, fat tissues may undergo a chemical change called saponification, leading to the formation of a waxy substance known as adipose hair or grave wax. Adipose hair formation preserves the body fat and slows further decomposition. So, for the next 2 to 3 weeks, the remaining soft tissues continue to break down, primarily through microbial action and scavenging insects, and more bones become visible as tissues around them decompose. Small bones may become detached. For the next 3 to 6 weeks, very little soft tissue remains, often confined to ligaments, cartilage, and hair. Bones may be covered with a layer of dried, decomposed tissue. The surrounding environment, such as soil, plants, and weather, begins to interact more directly with the body. Roots and soil organisms may penetrate the bones and remaining tissues. One thing I forgot to mention is that in the active decay stage, where the cadaver decomposition island, the CDI, begins to form. A cadaver decomposition island is a highly concentrated area of organically rich soil. That is why you will find the area surrounding a dead and decomposing body so green and just fertile. However, as the fluids being purged from the body continue to seep into the ground, the area surrounding the body becomes toxic. This is because the ongoing decomposition alters the soil's pH and nutrient composition, leading to elevated levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, and other elements are common in the CDI. Then the area around the body begins to dry up, becoming completely barren or with just little to no growth. By the time the body reaches the skeletonization stage, all soft tissues, including muscles, organs, and skin, have been fully decomposed through microbial activity, insect consumption, and environmental factors. Some fibrous tissues, such as ligaments and cartilage, may still be present, but are also subject to gradual breakdown. With the soft tissues gone, the skeleton is fully exposed to the environment. The bones may be scattered by scavengers or environmental forces, depending on whether the body is buried or exposed on the surface. Bones interact differently with the environment. Surface exposed bones may undergo weathering, while buried bones may be affected by soil chemistry. Yeah, that's it. That is what happens after death. Of course, there are some things that happen spiritually with the soul, but as far as science is concerned and the body, this is what happens after death. I hope this helps.